When it comes to coronavirus, we collectively have lost our minds. All right, well, maybe we've only lost half our minds, but let me explain. So imagine there is a viral particle. Now remember, a virus is a little piece of protein, and this little piece of protein has specific little other proteins and sugar moieties along it. Well, this little particle gets exposed to a person who's never been exposed to this particle before. What occurs is that this virus essentially docks to or attaches to a cell. So this human cell, which has not been exposed to it before, is now exposed to this viral particle and something occurs. In the case of coronavirus, it appears that the cell begins to exuberantly overproduce inflammatory molecules and to attract an upregulated basic immune response. Now here's the problem. Imagine that the lung tissue is exposed to coronavirus and the lungs of these individuals, then the lining of the epithelia, or the tissues in the lung, begins to overly produce different inflammatory molecules. These inflammatory molecules create congestion, begin to decrease oxygen delivery across the different linings, and as a result, the person fills up, gets pneumonias, now has difficulty breathing further, is intubated in the ICU, and may even die. Now, here's the problem with all of this. If you look at the actual data that exists to date, coronavirus is not a one-to-one situation. What do I mean? Well, just because you're exposed to the viral particle does not mean that you'll have major illness nor death. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It appears that in 80 to 90% of cases, people have minimal to no symptoms. And in only 10 to 20% of people, is there any significant issue? Well, when you go to the 30,000 foot view and you look at those numbers, your very first response should be, well, why? Why is it that most people don't have an issue with this virus? And a very small percentage of people do. Well, the good news is we don't have to imagine. There is now enough data that would suggest there's some powerful things. And some of the most powerful things appear to be the generalized, or I should say, physiologic health and physiologic immune function of the individual. So, if a person is in large part quite healthy, and most importantly, their immune health is excellent, it appears they have a very mild response to the virus. They develop antibody-based immunity, and they recover. However, in 10 to 20% of people, this becomes a major issue. Well, what is it? Well, it appears it's several things. One, chronologic age. But even more importantly, not just chronologic age, but we should say is physiologic age. If you look at the data, physiologic aging appears to largely be about inflammation. The efficiency of the body in having cellular processes without excessive amounts of inflammation being produced. Imagine like a factory that initially is very efficient, produces some waste, it's taken away, the factory is super clean, everything is great. But over time, the factory becomes a little sloppy. Stuff builds up around the machinery. And before you know it, the efficiency is way down. You can't find products. People are not working like they used to. And the factory is not as functional. Well, those things in the human body come with names like obesity, like hypertension, hyperlipidemia, type 2 diabetes, impaired kidney function, ongoing smoking status. These chronic cardiometabolic diseases and personal exposures radically impair the immune system. So now the immune system of these individuals, even if they're, quote, young chronologically, their immune system is severely impaired. Now, yes, there's a small group of people here who have had, for example, organ transplants or on medications for autoimmune disease or have had a history of cancer in the past and the like. Their immune system is impaired and there's not a lot we can do about it. So these people should be locked away somewhere safely and kept very carefully so they don't get exposure to this particular viral particle. But everybody else, the overwhelming majority of others, you look at this and go, well, wait a second. They have impaired immune function here, and a lot of diseases that appear to be lending themselves or causing this, and these people, on average, have good immunity. Well, what can we do? So the half-truth that's being told to people is they're told, hey, all you can do is to hide in your house, wear a mask when you're in public, and wait for the magic of a vaccine. In fact, I heard Bill Gates just give an interview briefly, and he said the only thing we can do is social distance and wait for the vaccine. The vaccine is the only thing that's going to resolve this and let people come back into their communities. Now, forgive me, Bill, but that's rather absurd. Let me explain why. Coronavirus 2019-2020 is not the first coronavirus that we've been exposed to. There have been multiple other coronaviruses over the last 20 years that have created more or less havoc and panic around the world. Now, what do we know? This will not be the last coronavirus we'll be exposed to, and it also, as I mentioned, has not been the first. Here's the problem. If we draw that little virus, and we say this virus has 3 circles here and 1 triangle here, well, that's its particular shape, yeah? Along with the particular different little sugar moieties or proteins on the ends. So if you develop a vaccine, it will protect people from this specific coronavirus, or at least will have a positive effect on quite a few of them. But what if next year, 2022, 2026, 2028, we're now exposed to another coronavirus that has slightly different shape to where these sugar moieties, these proteins, are? Well, this vaccine will have done nothing for this. So what do you propose? That we make a new vaccine for every single virus that comes and goes every year? Well, the cost of that, the risks of autoimmune induction, and of other illnesses related to the vaccines are real. How about first we focus on what people can do and then continue to look at this? So this is only one part of the equation, yet here we have hundreds, literally, of things that can be done to address underlying immunity. So the immune system of these individuals is improved so that we move these people to this side of the page, so that we get them healthier. Now, it's interesting because the data says that on average people can lose anywhere from 15 to 30 pounds in as little as 3 weeks with excellent nutritional modifications. The science says that 80% of people can get off their blood pressure medicines within 2 to 3 weeks with normal blood pressure. The studies say that 70 to 80% of people can get off their oral diabetic meds in 3 weeks. The studies say that people with stage 3 and even stage 4 renal impairment can improve their kidney function. The studies say that people can, in fact, quit smoking. The question is, are we encouraging people to do that? Are we facilitating people to do that? Are we empowering people to do this? Or instead, all we're doing is saying, there's nothing you can do except for stay at home and cower, and your consumption of McDonald's, your lack of exercise, and your continued exposure to severe toxins has nothing to do with your risk of coronavirus. Because that's the message we're telling people, and it's completely non-scientific one bit. The data is very clear about this. You have increased belly fat means that you have increased amounts of generalized inflammatory molecules. That belly fat is like a factory pumping out what are called adipokines, a type of cytokine or inflammatory molecule that damages your tissue and that upregulates and worsens inflammation throughout the body. The studies are very clear that personal habits like lack of exercise, like extra belly fat you carry, like excessive quantities of salt consumption, processed food, lack of exercise, etc., leads to hypertension. The The studies are clear that elevated cholesterol is directly related to dietary intake. Type 2 diabetes, 90% of it is preventable or reversible. Kidney dysfunction is incredibly influenced by all the other factors. So if we want to be honest with people, we need to tell them the whole story. Now, some people say to me, Dr. Esser, this is not the time to talk about nutrition. And you know what they're saying? They're just regurgitating the one thing they've heard instead of this truth of science. So nutrition is incredibly powerful when it comes to our immune system. Study after study demonstrates this, and I hope you've seen the studies I've been putting on Instagram and Facebook for you to look at the data yourself. About the power of things like green vegetables, the power of things like allium, different types of onion, garlic, etc. The power of various seeds, the powers of mushrooms, the power of all of the different minimally processed plant-based foods that are loaded with bioflavonoids and all manner of micronutrient that improves lymphocyte activity and the readiness of your immune system. It's kind of like you don't want your whole police force hanging out at the Dunkin' Donuts all day and putting on belly fat. They're not going to be able to fight off the terrorists. You want your police force to be in the gym, exercising. You want your police force, your immune system, to be eating excellently so they're svelte, have ripped muscle and great endurance and can chase down the bad guys. You want your immune system to be not stressed about a million other things, but to focus on protecting your body. You want your immune system to not be clogged up with all manner of toxins that are impairing the function of your immune system. Folks, there is so much you can do. Today is the day to begin to be hope-filled, to become inspired, to begin to be pre- and proactive, to begin to take ownership of your health. Do not only hide. Do not only isolate. No, it is time for the full truth to be told. The human body has an amazing and comprehensive ability to fight off common infections and frequently uncommon infections as well. In addition, if you and I continue to burden the body with chronic cardiometabolic diseases of all manner, with horrific habits of nutrition, if you're swinging by McDonald's and swinging by Chick-fil-A and loading up on the ice cream and all of the garbage, you are impairing your immune system and you are setting yourself up that if a viral particle this week, next month, or in 5 years is exposed to your already compromised immune system, that you will suffer significant disease, illness, and possibly death. Today is the day. It's time for truth. It is time for reality. It is time for you to begin to take back your health. Begin to make powerful, personal changes that can restore your immune system to where it's meant to be and keep you in the group of people that has little to nothing to fear from coronavirus. All right? Go do it.